point we've been seeing that area right there where we are seeing the SWAT team run towards. There is some reporting out there from sourcing that the suspect is down behind that area, but unclear if the suspect is in custody at this point. So that would be the best news possible. But you've seen from the response here and the messaging still going out to stay away or shelter in place that the scene has not been secured. But again, I just got a text from someone who texted me originally about a law enforcement officer who was hit during the exchange, who are now telling me that the suspect possibly down behind the CVS. But again, they have to confirm there is just one single suspect at this point, and of course take every precaution. Did that suspect drive here? If they did drive there, they then have to find that person's vehicle to secure that vehicle to make sure there is no other threat that they might have left in that vehicle. What I'll tell you as well is if they have a name on this suspect by now, they already probably have agents, police, and the ATF heading to that suspect's home, working to get a search warrant to start looking in that suspect's home to make sure there are not any more threats out there. Because again, you have to wonder, why did this take place? What was the intention? It's very close to the CDC.
Right.
We know the political environment out there. It's too early to say any of this. But again, they're not going to take any precaution here that's not, for them. Here's now we're spinning it. So this is what we heard.
This is a good perspective here as we turn it. Oh, they're waving. You see the officers waving something in. Let's see if
it's going to be an EMS bus.
If we can see if it's going to be an EMS bus or what they're waving in
here. It is. That's great EMS. So it looks like from our sourcing, from what our newsroom is hearing, this bus is about to pick up the possible suspect and wheel that suspect in that ambulance. So if we have that shot, we could see this in real time. Then they're loading that suspect in. If we can take the Super down, I don't know. I think it's right behind that Atlanta, the Super. I don't know if we can, but it looks like they are actually loading the suspect in that ambulance right there at this point. We just can't see it behind the banner, but we're working to get that for you.
Yeah, certainly seeing those officers waving it in quickly, and again, all centered around the entrance point to the CVS there, as everything on that intersection is blocked off. You see officers really huddled around the ambulance. We're kind of at the mercy of these traffic cameras right now, which we're glad for that perspective because you see some of the activity that's happening around there.
And for them to be letting out these individuals now, you don't see police running. It does appear this will be our suspect being loaded behind the breaking news banner, which you can see on the right of your screen, all the actions behind that banner.
Right.
They are loading that suspect from what we understand, and you saw those people being released. So there is some good news you're watching in real time.
That is significant because it's the first time we've seen anybody walking away from this central point that has been the focus of all the attention from law enforcement since that first communication came out more than 40 minutes ago now. So that was the first time we saw someone walking out. It looked to be perhaps somebody who was either working in the store or in the CVS store. You think about a busy Friday afternoon for employees, but also anyone who may have just happened to be in the store at that moment. This is obviously a very busy part of the city.
And again, this is the first time we have seen such a neutral area. You can see right now those individuals being allowed to walk around. They are not actively engaging. So that does lead us to believe what we are hearing from sources, that what you just watched were them waving in that ambulance for the suspect. Because if that was for a possible victim, they would not just be standing around. They would still be trying to engage with that shooter.
That's a really important point. This is a very different kind of energy that we've been seeing from officers as we've been monitoring this for the last 40 minutes. And we want to reiterate that according to our sources, a police officer has reportedly been shot and transported for care. I want to bring in 11 Alive reporter Grace King, who is on the ground gathering information. What have you learned from your vantage point, Grace?
Dozens and dozens and dozens of police cars from just about every agency you can imagine rushing on scene, still coming on scene, all of them getting out with rifles and rushing towards that CDC Clifton area, running down Clifton rather, towards that CDC area. We're a couple blocks back. That's how far the law enforcement is just stacked. You can see DeKalb, Chamblee, Brookhaven, Sandy Springs, GSP, of course, APD, DeKalb Sheriff. You can see just about everyone here. We've watched several ambulances go down here as well in the last 10 minutes or so, with multiple helicopters circling, just trying to figure out what's going on. We've seen family members rushing to try and see if their loved ones are okay. But again, Where we are is several blocks back because there are just so many law enforcement cars here trying to make sure everything's okay over there and also keeping everyone away from the scene just to make sure no one else gets hurt. We do see an ambulance starting to come towards us now. We're not sure, of course, if that's empty or who that has inside, but it now appears to be rushing towards us. We'll keep you updated as we continue learning more, but so far just a very active scene as everyone rushes to the scene trying to figure out what's going on.
Thank you, Grace King, reporting there live on the scene. If you're just joining us, we're following breaking news here on 11 Alive, an active shooter on the Emory Atlanta campus at Emory Point CVS. The CVS is on the first floor of that building, but there is an apartment complex above it. Our sources report that an officer has been wounded and has been transported. We're working to confirm all that information, also sourcing that the suspect may have been injured, and we saw an ambulance just a few minutes ago come into the scene as police have descended around that area. A communication went out from Emory University to all staff, employees, and potential students to stay where they were. There was an active shooter, and in all caps it read, "Run, hide, fight, period, avoid that area." We have seen a shift in the energy from the many police officers that Grace King was just alluding to. For a time, we saw all of them pursuing the front door of that CVS, and now we're starting to see more and more walk away as that area has been completely cleared. I really want to point out that as a city, we watch all this unfold together. It is nerve-wracking. It makes anyone worried who knows someone who lives in that area, works in that area, goes traveling through that area. We understand that everyone's kind of on pins and needles as we do not have information on whether anyone was hurt. We don't know who may have been inside the CVS when all this happened. We know there are videos that are circulating where you can hear rapid gunfire. So anyone who has been seeing this response, heard that gunfire, certainly is experiencing something traumatic today, and a lot of people out there are worried about them. Any information that we get, we will communicate to you right away. At this point, the only thing we're hearing from sources is about the police officer. We're not sharing the jurisdiction of that until that's confirmed, and potentially the suspect. We don't know of anyone else who's been physically hurt.
And I can tell you, as you mentioned, with all of this opening back up, you see law enforcement leaving that scene. You see the fire department leaving that scene. It does appear that this threat is over. We first got the alerts from Emory around 5:02 p.m. You saw that massive response. This intersection was closed, and you can see all of the law enforcement and fire down this street here at Clifton Road. Sources tell me that initial call came in at 1600 Clifton Road. We believe this all transpired right outside that CVS. We don't know yet what prompted this. I can assure you there will be a news conference at some point because of the multi-jurisdictional response here. This is in DeKalb County. We know DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, police. We know APD was there, likely federal agents. And if this was a true active shooter type situation, likely the ATF and the FBI will also be assisting if they are not already on scene. So there will be a lot of questions we will be asking during this news conference, if one will be scheduled, which I'm sure it will, depending on what jurisdiction is taking the lead. But even DeKalb County Sheriffs, APD, Fulton County Sheriff, they're going to want to get in front of this. They want people to know what happened here. They want to talk about the response, how it went. They're going to have a debriefing now. That's what's likely going to happen over the next few hours. They will all step back. Once everything is neutralized, they will step back and look at this response to make sure they followed everything they have practiced in these past years.
We did see so many jurisdictions coming in rapid speed. There was a fast response that we were able to watch here on 11 Alive in real time. New information coming in just 1 minute ago. We've just learned that AG Roads Nursing Home, which is right in that area, is on lockdown. So if you know someone who is in AG Roads, Wesley Woods offering, it's a long-term care facility with rehabilitation services. They have dialysis there. They have an Alzheimer's unit. So any anyone who's living there or being treated there or working there is right now on lockdown, so nobody in or out. Wanted to pass that along, as that is the case probably for a lot of businesses in that area, as they're waiting for any new communication from police about whether it's safe to get out. We've been hearing about the engagement of one active shooter. We don't know if there's anyone else. That's one question police will certainly want to make sure that they can answer before they give any kind of all clear to any of the businesses in that area. Obviously, the biggest entities in that area are the CDC headquarters and the university, Emory University campus.
And you can see that very different scene here on Clifton Road at Houston Mill Road. So all indications, again, the threat has been stopped at this point, which is great news here at 5:46 p.m. If you're just joining us, the first alerts that we started getting word of this came out about 5:02 from those screenshots of an active shooter on Atlanta campus near Emory Point. Now, this is a live look. You see DeKalb County EMS on scene there. This is at Emory Hospital here. Now, I can tell you this, my sourcing is telling me this is where that law enforcement officer was taken originally. I do not know any updates from this situation, but you can see the response at this ER. That is a good sign. That law enforcement officer was taken to this hospital. Obviously, that officer did exactly what they're trained to do, engage with the shooter. That is how the protocol is now. They don't sit back and wait. Those first responding officers, everyone going to that scene knows if they are the first law enforcement officer on that scene, their job is to find the threat, engage in that threat, and neutralize the threat, whatever that means, to get that threat taken away. So it's likely in that moment this officer engaged and that shootout happened, and that is how this officer was hit. Again, now we don't know if it was a through and through wound, if it was to the vest. That's what we don't know. Even if you take a bullet to the vest, it still hurts. But I would imagine with the scene there at Emory Hospital, that officer was not just hit in the vest. We're hoping that officer is going to be okay. I have gotten reports of what agency this officer belongs to, but at this point, that's not important. What is important is that that officer is going to be okay. We're also working to find out if there were any civilian injuries. That's something I have not seen anywhere right now as far as possible injuries. We did get word from my same sourcing, and we've also heard in the newsroom the suspect was injured behind that CVS, Cheryl, we were looking at, and we believe that ambulance was being waved in just a few moments ago. You watched live here on 11 Alive to load that suspect and get that person to the hospital.
We see people in scrubs crossing the street as people might be leaving work. On the right side of your screen, you see those Emory University buses right there. Again, those are all being held. If you're waiting for someone who takes that bus, that's why you're not seeing them come your way. Those are all being held right now as we see the ambulance there. And we start to really, with these different perspectives from our crews there on the ground, see how vast this area is. Emory University has about 20,000 employees, let alone people who are in and out. We have a new statement that just came in from Attorney General Chris Carr. He writes that he's horrified by the news out of Emory University, praying for the safety of the entire community. And he says that the department stands ready to assist law enforcement as needed. As we're reading this together, this statement just coming in from Attorney General Chris Carr. We see the law enforcement response has been massive. And we've talked a lot, Cody, about how all the jurisdictions come together. These protocols are in place for this very scenario, and they know exactly what they need to do and to do it quickly when this happens. And you are going to see all of them working, not just in this moment as this still unfolds, but in the investigation that is to follow. If you're not familiar with this area, oh, go ahead, Cody, you got some new information?
DeKalb County Police still telling folks to stay indoors. They are asking for our helicopters to get out of the way because it's interfering with radio traffic. So while we have seen the massive scene clear, DeKalb County Police say this is still an active investigation, asking us to move our helicopters at this point because it's interfering with radio traffic. And please tell people, quote, stay indoors. That is what we're hearing. So again, we thought we might be in the clear with the massive response kind of clearing out from Clifton Road, but we can still see a response in this area, as you see right here live at Clifton Road at Houston. Mill Road. And I reached out to a source to ask if this threat is over, and they're saying right now we cannot say for certain the threat is over. They're looking at the possibility there's possibly 2 shooters involved. Again, that's not confirmed, but I'm trying to be as transparent as possible with you from my sourcing who I trust. And that's what they're looking into. That's not a surprise, though, because they always have to do this. They have to confirm no one else was involved. But that is something now that they are looking into. And DeKalb County Police, again, now telling our newsroom to ask people to stay indoors and to move our choppers back because it's interfering. So this must still be a very active response and a very active investigation, which is not a surprise to what we've been seeing here.
So obviously we are going to respect any wishes from law enforcement. So now our helicopter has moved back to give them more space, but we have good lenses that can zoom you closer. So I just want to communicate as we're talking about the request to kind of pull back, we're doing that, but we can still kind of give you a zoomed in look of what's happening. And that intersection is really the focal point of this investigation. If you're not familiar with this area, the CVS in question is on the first floor, directly across the street from the CDC's main entrance. There's an apartment complex, Emory Point, that sits right above the CVS, and it's all very close to the University of Emory campus, which is what you're seeing right now. We want to take you to the ground. 11 Alive's Chase Howell reporting on the ground. You're talking to people there on the ground. Tell us everything you're seeing and any new information that's coming in.
Hey, Cheryl, I have not been able to talk to anyone. I mean, traffic was really, really bad getting up here, naturally so. But I did just see the police chief, the Atlanta police chief, go through this barricade right here. While I was walking up to this location where I'm standing, I did see SWAT running by me. On my way here, I saw over a dozen police cruisers. I saw fire and emergency personnel. I saw ambulances rushing over to the Emory campus here, and I'm pulling up the address now. I'm off of Clifton Road Northeast and Tower Circle Northeast as well, and that's what it's sounding like, where police are kind of, I guess, staging right now. As you can see, the street is completely blocked off. I mean, these police cars go back farther and farther as they go through campus. If you look down here, this is completely lined with police. I had to walk probably maybe a quarter of a mile to get up here just now. If you take a look over here, again, we're seeing all these police officers. I'm moving up closer so you guys can get maybe a better look, as good as I can, get close as I can. But it goes clear up to, I think that zoomed in worked. But it goes all the way up the hill right here. So again, there's no through traffic over here. Again, as you guys have been mentioning for the last half hour or so, they're asking people to avoid the area at all costs. People are still sheltering in place. But again, we're here on the Emory University campus where there's a large police presence from that active shooter.
Chase, thanks for that perspective. That is what it looks like basically on all 4 points of this intersection. The priority right now is for law enforcement to make sure they know how many shooters they're dealing with, if there is any active threat to the people in that area, and they are not going to make a move to give an all clear until they can for certain answer those questions. So as we talk about an active shooter, we know there was one shooter. We know there's video of rapid gunfire, but the question is, 1 or 2, what are they dealing with in this circumstance? You see how many big buildings are in that area, the places to hide, all the trees, as we are famously known for in the city of Atlanta. So they need to make very certain that whatever they're dealing with is contained. They're going to want to talk to anyone who saw this happen. This is obviously a very busy area between the CDC headquarters and the university campus and the apartment buildings on a Friday evening, late afternoon, early evening, the start of rush hour. So many people in that area. Who saw what? How can it help? Most importantly, in this moment, is everybody safe?
Okay, so this is a new update from my sourcing. So while we did see a lot of cars leaving, what I'm being told now is this is a perimeter. You see those cars kind of down Clifton Road. I'm being told that while we did see a lot of that response kind of move out, kind of dissipate on Clifton Road, this is not over. They have a perimeter set up, and they are possibly looking for a second shooter. So that's what you're seeing right now. This is now strategic. They have cars lined up, and they have officers out working this perimeter. So it does appear possibly whatever threat is there, they have this threat contained to a certain area, and they're working to make sure no one else is hurt. So again, that was some good news we were seeing from that massive response kind of clearing out, but it seems now they have really focused in on a certain area where they might have a second suspect here. So again, we originally told at least one suspect was hit. We don't know any details on that, but again, we are now hearing that there is possibly a second person injured. I can tell you I've been reaching out to several sources here. This one also a very close source that I've been monitoring here, kind of reaching out to, waiting to see what they could tell us. And what I am being told right now is that there have apparently been no civilian injuries at this point. That's initially what I'm hearing, that no civilians have been hurt, but a possible second law enforcement officer has been hit. So that is something we're working to confirm. That's all I've been able to get from the sources I've been reaching out to. I've been reaching out to several to make sure what I'm giving you here is preliminary, but it's what is being told to me from other law enforcement members in this southeast region. So what I'm being told initially here, possibly 2 officers hit here, no civilian injuries at this point. So it looks like those officers engaged with at least one of those suspects.
We want to go to the phone now. Reginald Gatson joins us now on the phone.
Some fight for survival. Some for revenge.
I want every brick of it in 12 hours' time.
But one thing's for sure, the action never stops.
What the? You can't just kidnap a guy and take his things.
Get ready for non-stop action. Watch free, only on Fossum.
You can't just kidnap a guy and take his things. You can't do that. That's so illegal.
I watch a lot of movies, Paul. I know what I'm doing.
Watch free, only on Fossum.
Things were already so difficult for my mom when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Then she developed agitation that may happen with dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. She started verbally lashing out, breaking things, wandering at night. These symptoms were a different kind of difficult. So we asked her doctor for more help.
Rexulti is the only FDA-approved medication proven to reduce symptoms of agitation that may happen with dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. Elderly people with dementia-related psychosis have increased risk of death or stroke. Report fever, stiff muscles, and confusion, which can be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar can lead to coma or death, weight gain, increased cholesterol, unusual urges, dizziness on standing, falls, seizures, trouble swallowing, or sleepiness may occur.
I'm glad I asked for help.
Ask your loved one's doctor today about Rexulti. Moments matter.
We love Atlanta. We're dedicated to finding solutions that help us not just survive, but thrive. Solutions that help make our daily commutes easier and communities safer. See solutions to make your life better on 11 Alive News.
Safest thing is stay where you are as they are working to determine if there's a second shooter involved in this active shooting there on the Emory Atlanta campus. Can you just give me your first reaction, what you felt in your gut when that text came through, Reginald?
This is my first time having an active shooter here on Emory's campus since I've been here, so it's just a little frightening. I wouldn't expect that in this area, I should say. So I just tried to get to the nearest shelter close as possible.
Has anyone there on the ground been communicating with you about any directions, or is the only direction coming through the Safe app?
Right now, only through the Safe app. I haven't, my supervisors, they're telling us to find shelter, stay inside the building, do not go outside. They want as safe as possible, so I came out here, to give you guys a good view, but I will be going back into shelter shortly here.
Yeah, we want you to be safe, Reginald, so I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I really appreciate the information. Keep in touch with us if anything else comes in, and appreciate your perspective on this.
No problem. Thank you.
Stay safe, Reginald. Thanks for the time.
And right now at 6 o'clock, if you are just joining us, we are monitoring an active shooter call that happened in the 1600 block of Clifton Road around 5 o'clock this afternoon. We can now confirm the FBI is telling us they're aware of the incident in DeKalb County, and they are en route and coordinating with their local partners. You can see even Lithonia Police, DeKalb County Sheriff, DeKalb County Police, Atlanta Police, multiple agencies are on scene here outside the CVS near the CDC entrance, where we now know it's confirmed shots were fired around the 5 o'clock hour, Cheryl, and our sourcing is telling us at least one law enforcement officer was hit and possibly one suspect as well.
We are holding on discussing whether what jurisdiction those officers are from. Cody's sources are giving more information. We're holding until that's confirmed. We know there are a lot of family members and loved ones of law enforcement right now watching this play out, and we understand that's a nerve-wracking and scary situation. We have not heard from different departments yet on who those law enforcement officers are, but we can tell you that Atlanta Police are on scene, Dunwoody Police are on scene. I just got some video 10 seconds ago from 11 Alive reporter Grace King, who just sent me some video of FBI there on scene that Cody was just talking about. A massive police response from DeKalb, all these surroundings jurisdictions from the moment that first report of that active shooter came in. Let's bring in 11 Alive reporter Grace King. Grace, I just saw your video of FBI on scene. Tell us what you're seeing and how this maybe energy has changed in the last 10 minutes or so. As we get to Grace in just a second ago, as she's setting up her shot, we're working to gather information, but also trying to stay out of the way of law enforcement. So she's just making a quick adjustment to where she is there on the scene. But she had seen FBI there right in front of her on scene as they're helping in this investigation, and also working to see if they can contain what's reported as a second shooter in that. So we'll get to Grace in just a minute. There are a lot of businesses in this area. If you're just joining us, this is all centered around the CVS right there, the Emory Point CVS, the apartment building right above that CVS. It's catty corner from the CDC headquarters and right by the university, Emory University campus there. Grace, do we have you now?
Yes. Hello. We are still on scene. Just about everyone you can imagine has showed up in the last couple of minutes. We're still seeing cars, full light sirens rushing down Clifton Road, trying to figure out what's going on. A lot of them unmarked. We've seen the FBI show up in the last couple of minutes, the Department of Public Safety. Just about everyone you can imagine starting to set up that perimeter here on Clifton Road. They're still very active. They're still putting on full helmets, rifles, vests, etc., rushing towards that scene. So at least from back here on Clifton Road, it still feels like a very active scene. We're seeing Gwinnett County police cars and some others as well, too. But just a lot of worried families rushing to try and figure out what's going on with their loved ones. They've also heard sirens from, it almost feels like Emory, some kind of warning siren that has also continued to go off.
Grace, thanks so much. We do want to get some new information. As I've been reporting from sourcing, is that there was an officer shot. My source had told me from the beginning this was a DeKalb County Sheriff's deputy. NBC News now confirming what we were hearing, a DeKalb County officer, but my sources are telling me that this is a DeKalb County Sheriff's deputy who engaged with this shooter. A second source is telling me possibly a second law enforcement officer was hit. I cannot confirm that without doubt right now, but that's initially what I'm hearing from my same sourcing. But we saw that shot on the ground from Emory Hospital. That is what my sources tell me. This is where they tell me the deputy was taken to that, because it's a short distance from where this is all happening, which is a great hospital, but of course unclear if they'll be sent to the trauma center over at Grady. Yeah, because Grady is a level 1 trauma center equipped for the most critical cases, so significant that they were
transported to Emory University Hospital. It is obviously the closest one, but NBC then the second source on that DeKalb County officer. There is not any information at this point on the condition or the extent of that officer's injuries. Obviously, the moment we have more information on that, we will certainly let you know. And right now, the most important point is the question of the second shooter, that we don't know whether that person's been contained in any way. They've set up a perimeter, which you're seeing the law enforcement right now. They've set up a perimeter as they're trying to make certain that they have a handle on this situation. At 6:05 right now, more than an hour and a half in, Emory just sent out another tweet saying, "Continue to shelter in place," which speaks to the question that the threat is not over, not in terms of letting people go back to business. So you have a lot of employees in that area, people who live in that area who have been told, stay where you are, make sure that you are safe, don't go outdoors. And they've asked our 11 Alive helicopter, this is the view from the 11 Alive Sky Tracker right now, to just give a little space to law enforcement to make sure that it is not interfering with any of their technology. But we're able with our cameras to still zoom in to give you a good perspective here as you're seeing fire trucks on the outer edge of that perimeter as well. This is a closer look from a traffic camera at Clifton Road.
And Atlanta police giving us a little better idea of the location, but as we mentioned, my sources telling me that the initial call came in at 1600 Clifton Road. Atlanta police say they responded near 1760 Clifton Road for the report of an active shooter, which we now know confirmed there was a shooting of some kind. We know there's video out there of that gunfire being heard from nearby neighbors. There's a lot of neighborhoods around this area. Of course, there are people that live above where this happened as well in apartments. There's an apartment complex behind that CVS as well. And I'll tell you, Atlanta police, as I think it was Chase mentioned, he saw the police chief there enter into that crime scene. APD knows how to respond to this. Just in the last few years, we had the Midtown shooter that was there. We had the Four Seasons active shooter that was shooting from a high rise, and a sniper from APD took that threat down. So these men and women train. They train across multiple jurisdictions. And what we saw today was a response that they train for. But what's going to be interesting to see is what prompted this and if there is actually a second individual involved. But you can see there is a perimeter set up. While there is some traffic moving, it does appear they do have this perimeter kind of tight with officers surrounding it and keeping that perimeter held at this point as far as 607.
Grady Public Information Officer confirms that no officer has been sent to Grady Hospital, but 11 Alive reporter Zach Merchant is there at Grady. Zach, what are you hearing on the ground? Any new information coming in there from Grady?
Yeah, Cheryl, actually just in the last couple of minutes, we spoke with a spokesperson from Grady Hospital. They say they're not receiving, at this point at least, any victims from this shooting. They say they're being handled at Emory. So that's the big development right now. Again, Grady saying they're not taking any potential victims, any of the victims from this shooting. Of course, we are here. Often in cases like this, we come to Grady because Grady is a level 1 trauma center. It is placed one of the most advanced hospitals in our region. This is often where trauma victims are taken for treatment. Right now, though, Grady spokeswoman again saying not getting any victims here. I do also want to bring you a little bit of information. We spoke with the FBI about 20-30 minutes ago, so things are developing since then. But just in the 20 to 30 minutes immediately following the news breaking of this shooting at the Emory campus, an FBI spokesperson said they were aware of the situation, they were tracking it, and just like us at the time, working to get their arms around exactly what happened and calibrate their response to this rapidly unfolding situation. We've also spoken with, just in the last 10 to 15 minutes via text message, a former law enforcement officer and now a professor at Georgia State University. That's Thad Johnson. We asked him what is normal for a law enforcement response to this kind of active shooter threat. And he said a lot of what Cody Alcorn has been reporting in real time. Thad said it is common for law enforcement to kind of move in 4 steps on this. First, they They move in fast, then they try to lock down the situation, then they work to search and confirm exactly what is happening on scene there once things get a little more under control. And then quickly as well, law enforcement works to start triaging any potential victims. Again, a lot unfolding, a lot we are tracking today. That is what you can expect, according to Thad Johnson, from a law enforcement response to a situation like what is unfolding today. At this point, we can report, again, no victims are coming to Grady, at least for right now. Cheryl.
Zach, that is significant to your point, because when Zach's talking about Grady being the level 1 trauma center, it's significant because the most serious cases go to Grady for that purpose. So the fact that there is not someone there is an important piece of information. And if you're just joining us, what we know from NBC and our sources is that an officer was taken to Emory University Hospital, but the extent of that officer's injuries has not been shared publicly. But the fact that the officer was taken to Emory University Hospital, which was the closest hospital in, like, geographically, but not the level 1 trauma center, is an important and I think encouraging piece of information.
Yeah, we're going to hopefully just hang on to the encouragement from that, and it couldn't be worse. But again, we do know there's a large law enforcement presence at Emory Hospital. When an officer goes down, those colleagues go straight there. They're with the family, likely going to pick that family up, escorting them to that hospital. We know the police chief from Atlanta PD is there. We do know there will be a media staging area, which means there will be a news conference at some point tonight. We'll bring that to you, of course. But right now, as we've been talking, the goal right now of this response is to make sure there is no more threat. And the fact that Emory and DeKalb County Police are saying for everyone to shelter in place, to stay away from this containment, that indicates that at this point they have not given the all clear, and they do not believe that the threat has been neutralized. We initially heard that possibly one suspect was hurt. We saw an ambulance, someone being loaded into an ambulance. So the only injuries we've heard at this point, Cheryl, have been law enforcement and a suspect. So that's one of the 2 people we saw there, because my sources are telling me at this point there have been no civilian injuries. And if there were those type of injuries with traumatic injuries, they would go to Grady Hospital. Emory would take some, but they would be taking, if they had multiple gunshot victims, something like that with severe injuries, there's no better, you do not want to go anywhere else but Grady if you have those type of traumatic wounds. So again, the best case scenario here, it's going to be contained to what we have right now. Of course, we never want to hear a law enforcement officer hit, but they did their job. They stopped the threat before it got to civilians. So this is some good news, but again, right now we cannot say this threat is over here as of 6/12.
And again, that the communication for everyone in this area is to continue to shelter in place. So if you know someone who lives or works in that area and you may be texting with them, the best thing they can do is stay where they're at. That's going to be the safest thing that they can do. It is significant that there are no reports of any civilians being hurt, because this is an area where 11,000 people work at the CDC, 20,000 employees of Emory University, and a lot of apartments and condos in that area as well. So all of those people who are still there need to stay where they are for now. That is the safest place that you can be.
And I believe Chase has some movement over where he's at. Chase, what are you seeing? What's happening? And where are you exactly?
Hey, Cody, so I'm over off of Old Briarcliff Way Northeast, where it turns into that Tower Circle Northeast off of Clifton Road. And I want to show you, going up that towers, as I just mentioned, I believe they're setting something up right here. This is a rescue team, Atlanta Fire, and they set up some sort of white flag within the last 20 minutes as maybe a place for people to come and get help and get checked out if they need any sort of medical attention, I should say. Now, I have seen, as Grace mentioned, the FBI here walk up towards campus, I'm assuming is up Tower Circle. And then I've also seen, as you mentioned, plenty of different municipalities coming in here. I just saw a sheriff go up towards campus as well. And again, this is all blocked off. There's a lot of people over here just kind of standing by, wondering what's going on right now. What's the latest, hoping to get new information. As Cody mentioned, there is a media staging area, so we should be hearing from police about what happened and get those what we're hearing fact checked and hear from the source itself. But as Grace mentioned, as I've said, as you guys said, this is a very busy scene. Law enforcement agencies have been going up and down, some of them with long guns, running up this hill here. And also, again, I go back to this white flag. I'm thinking this is some sort of medical checkout point for people. But again, we're here off of Old Briarcliff and Tower. So when we get more information, we're hoping to keep you guys updated, but keep coming back. I'm going to keep trying to talk to people, find out why people are here right now, and the impact this is having on them.
All right. Chase, thanks a lot. Chase saw a SWAT vehicle coming in. I think it is a key point of information that there's still law enforcement officers arriving at the scene, so appreciate that update. We just a moment ago got an update from Governor Brian Kemp. This is his statement. We're going to read this together in real time. Twice this week, deranged criminals have targeted innocent Georgians. Each time, brave first responders rush toward the danger to subdue the shooter and save lives, reminding us just how crucial they are. Marty, the girls, and I are thankful for all those who answer the call to serve and who protect their fellow Georgians. We ask that you join us in holding them in our prayers, along with those harmed this evening near the CDC Center. Again, that's a statement just coming in a moment ago from Governor Brian Kemp. We also have a statement from the Attorney General of Georgia, Chris Carr. We can pull that up for you as well here in just a moment. We heard from the Attorney General in the last half hour ago, sharing that he's horrified by the news out of Emory. He wrote that he's praying for the safety of the entire community and that the Attorney General's office stands ready to assist law enforcement. So these are the statements that have come out just a few moments ago from the governor, and within the last 30 minutes from the Attorney General, Chris Carr, who's also a candidate for governor.
And, we're talking about a law enforcement officer shot. Last night I was on the scene just in downtown Atlanta. We had 2 MARTA police officers shot. I mean, it's just the environment we are in across this country, and you hate to see this 2 days in a row. But you can see the massive response here as still a very active scene. You just saw that from Chase. They're still setting up and forming that perimeter. Initially, again, we were told from sources that the first law enforcement officer was shot in the 5 o'clock hour. We now know that was a DeKalb County Sheriff's deputy, according to sources, that was hit and taken to Emory. We also got word from sources in our newsroom that one suspect was possibly hit. We saw someone being loaded at an ambulance there out in front of the CVS on Clifton Road, right across from the CDC. We don't have confirmed who that is, but you see the SWAT team right there. That's a Bearcat. So if you look to the left of your screen, that is an armored vehicle right there. Now they have crime scene tape up across Clifton Road. That was not there during the 5 o'clock hour. So now we have yellow tape actually blocking that intersection. We saw all of that activity. We saw all of the SWAT teams running in there. So that's very interesting. And now we have a Bearcat outside that building, which they only bring those typically in to protect those SWAT officers who are now engaged with possible suspects. So that's an armored vehicle for them to get behind to kind of watch and monitor. So it's going to be very interesting to see what information is put out by law enforcement. Because at this point, Cheryl, nothing has been confirmed by law enforcement other than the fact DeKalb County Communications told NBC National News that they confirmed what we have been reporting from sourcing, that a DeKalb County officer was hit and taken to Emory.
I am looking at some pictures right now that we will turn around and get to you on the air, but these are coming in real time, and they are pictures from people on the scene, and there are bullet holes in glass, and it looks like it's coming from perhaps the perspective of the CDC building. They're pictures from someone who says they are a CDC employee, and it is a source of someone here at the station. So we believe this is from a colleague at the CDC. We had heard about video where you hear rapid gunfire. So we know there's been exchange of gunfire, and now I'm looking at a number of different pictures of bullet holes in glass at the CDC headquarter building. Well, we don't know if that was directed there or if they just were kind of caught in the crossfire at some point, but it speaks to the intensity of that exchange at some point, and also speaks to the fact that we are glad that at this point there are no reports of any civilians who were hurt in any gunfire exchange through the course of the last hour and a half or more that we've been following this active shooter there on the Emory Atlanta campus.
And that's why they want people to shelter in place, because those bullets that you're seeing that we're looking at ourselves are high up. So when these shootouts happen, a lot of times it's just a barrage of gunfire, and those bullets do not have names on them. Okay, let's look at the shot. This is the one I wanted to see.
Yeah.
That's where all the activity was earlier. Those are apartments above the CVS right there outside of the CDC. And that is Clifton Road. That's where all that activity was earlier. And now we have crime scene tape up at the entrance right there outside the CVS. I saw the Bearcat out there by one agency. That's what the SWAT team brings in. And there's also another type of special equipped truck that's there with a box in the back. That's kind of a pulled out view there. That is where all of the action was during the 5 o'clock hour. Our chopper's kind of backing out there. But this area is still very active. And again, sources are telling us there is possibly a second shooter. And by the response here and how they have this area locked down with SWAT teams still engaged, they're doing a couple of things from just experience reporting on this. They're either clearing that building to confirm no second suspect, or they believe possibly there is a second shooter and they're actively trying to find that person.
We have some new information coming in from our partners at CNN. We were talking about the pictures that came in from a CDC employee. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, directly across Clifton Avenue from the Emory Point CVS, does not appear to have been breached, according to a law enforcement official. That means no one got into that building. The question is about, some damage that may be to the glass in terms of bullets coming through the glass. We have been getting pictures in from an Emory student who lives at Emory Point. Emory Point is the apartments directly above the CVS on the first floor where the reports of this active shooter happened, and where Cody and I had been watching that initial response, including SWAT officers running to that front entrance of the CDC, where we were hearing reports of a gunfire exchange. So if there are windows broken at the CDC, that's because a bullet flew across the intersection and hit it. According to the CDC, there was not a breach of that building.
And we are just hearing they are going to have a news conference in the Clifton Road Kroger soon. That's in the 1700 block, so I know our team's listening to us. If anybody's close to the Kroger on Clifton Road at 1799, that is where a news conference is going to be held in a moment. And I will tell you this. These are some new pictures coming in, but we are getting new information. I'm going to work on some sourcing here about one of those officers possibly hit, but I'm going to work on that right now as we look at these pictures. Cheryl, you were just talking about it.
Okay, you work on your source, and I'll talk through these pictures. Just a few minutes ago, I was talking about the pictures that came and showing the bullet holes in the windows. We're now looking at those pictures together. This is a close-up of one of the bullet holes in the window of the CDC building. This is a wider shot, obviously. This would be the perspective from the CVS or the Emory campus at Emory Point right there, looking across the intersection diagonally at the CDC headquarter building. You see, these are the pictures that show damage to some of the windows, bullet holes in some of those windows, diagonally across Clifton Avenue there. This is sent to us from an Emory University student who lives in the Emory Point apartments right above the CVS where that active shooter came in late this afternoon and where the police response has been happening ever since. If you want to cycle through a few more of those pictures for anyone who might have missed those, it would be great to show that in just a minute. We can get back to that. We're now looking at sort of the outside of this perimeter as fire trucks are blocking off the road, to Cody's point, setting up this perimeter to make sure that whatever threat may still remain is contained. And we cannot stress enough the situation with perhaps the officers that we know reports of being injured. We have confirmed through DeKalb County, one DeKalb officer was injured. We don't know the extent of those injuries, and reports of a second law enforcement officer who may have been hit. And again, we're working right now. Cody, you're talking to your sources about any new information about those officers, because that is certainly where our thoughts and our hearts are.
Well, I'll tell you this, right now, law enforcement is going to need a lot of prayers across Metro Atlanta tonight as we learn new information. But just keep those law enforcement officers, their families in your prayers. They're going to need a lot of them. We're going to probably learn more in that news conference. But what I do want to let you know, if you're kind of watching this, you know, there is a small portion of this area over in DeKalb County. That's why we've seen a lot of DeKalb County response. You've seen multiple local jurisdictions. You've seen APD. But again, it does seem like this all happened around Emory Point CVS. Again, this is across the street from the CDC. That is what kind of triggers that national news, that national mindset of, was this an attack at the CDC? It does not appear that's the case at all. It appears it happened across the street at the Emory Point CVS. That's where Cheryl and I watched those SWAT team members race towards in those live shots just after that alert went out at 5 o'clock. That is where crime scene tape is up outside of the CVS at Emory Point. It's right there in that intersection. So it's going to be interesting to find out what. And that car has been parked there. I don't know if the helicopter will zoom down, but there is a white car parked out the front of that CVS. I noticed it earlier when they had the ambulance out there, and that car has not moved. It does not look like an unmarked car. It does not look like a police car, but it's got the trunk popped open. So very interesting if that plays a role in anything. But I can tell you that intersection is blocked off, and that's where the focus of all of this response is. So to the right, if you're looking at that intersection, that's the entrance near the CDC. On the left, that building with the yellow bottom, that's the CVS. There are apartments above that and an entire apartment building behind there. So you see, and there's woods that surround it. Those woods to the back, that's neighborhoods. I've had a friend that he actually reached out and said, what is happening? Yeah. The video that people are sharing right now on social media of the shootout, the gunshots, those are from neighborhoods behind there that they had no idea at first what in the world was happening.
They just heard the gunfire, got their attention. So that's
At 11 Alive News, we get it. We're here to help.
These are the Atlanta zip codes with the highest car insurance rates.
Reporting on real issues.
We uncovered millions of dollars in unused rental assistance.
Sharing real solutions.
After our investigation aired, GDOT took action to make Georgia roads safer.
For solutions that make your life better, watch 11 Alive News.
On the Emory Atlanta campus at Emory Point, avoid the area, shelter in place, updates to follow. So this communication at 6:27, just a minute ago, there continues to be a police emergency on the Emory Atlanta campus at Emory Point. Avoid the area, shelter in place, more updates as they can. And we just got information from 11 Alive reporter Ariana Manise that she's confirming that Emory Hospital is locked down. This is the first we're hearing of that Emory Hospital right now is locked down. So there is still a lot of activity. This is not over. There's a lot of work to be done.
And that happens a lot, and people might not realize that when a gunshot victim of any case goes into an ER, oftentimes those ERs are locked down immediately in case the threat comes back to that ER. Obviously, a law enforcement officer, it heightens all security. So that is likely why that hospital did go on lockdown and its close proximity. Again, what Cheryl just read from Emory, what the sourcing is telling me, what our newsroom is hearing, and what we're seeing on the ground from our crews, there has to be some legit concern there's a second shooter here. We've seen these. We have seen active shooters in the city of Atlanta, unfortunately. We know how this works, and they always go in to find a second person. They always want to make sure there's not. But I feel the response still happening. The perimeter that's set up and these messaging going out makes you believe there is some credible evidence they have that there was a second shooter. Hopefully there's not, and this is, out of precaution, but I just can't imagine this much manpower, the response still happening. They have to have some credible evidence that there possibly is a second shooter. But again, you can never be too safe at the time we live in. Of course, the proximity of this to the CDC, no indication right now from our sourcing or from any law enforcement agency that this had anything to do with the CDC, other than it appears some of those barrage of bullets penetrated the windows at the building, which again is why law enforcement stresses to stay away, as nosy as all of us are, even newsrooms and journalists, we want to get close, but this is why they push us back, because those bullets can go far and they don't have names on them, and that's when innocent people get hurt.
That's a really important clarification. The CDC headquarters just happens to be diagonal across that Clifton Road intersection from the CVS where all the activity has been. And to your point about the thought about that second shooter, is when we saw SWAT running towards, in the center of your screen, you see that white kind of curvature building right there on the corner. That's the CVS in question. As we're zooming into the front of that right now with the red awnings, that's the CVS. Suspects or shooters. The question then that looms is the question about a second shooter, and is there a containment that still needs to happen for all of the people in the area? We know so many of you have now been sheltering in place for more than 2 hours. We understand it's nerve-wracking. It's not where anyone wants to be, but it is the safe place to be. So if you can hear me and you're in those buildings and you hadn't got that communication, just 5 minutes ago, there was another communication to stay where you are, stay away from windows, to Cody's point, and that's been reinforced by the bullet holes we've seen in some windows, people sharing those pictures. Stay where you are. If someone you know and love is in that area and you're texting with them, just tell them to hang tight. That's the safest place they can be.
And we do want to go to Chase right now. He's been on the scene. Chase, for people just joining us, can you set the scene as far as where you are and what you're seeing for people that might not be familiar with the Clifton Road area around where you're at?
Hey, Cody, yeah, I can probably show you better than I can tell you, but if you look up this way, now what you're looking at is Clifton up to the CDC Parkway. You guys keep mentioning that CVS. Well, I would say 2 or 3 blocks down. And I mean, you can see all the law enforcement personnel right there. I mean, you have Brookhaven Police, you have Atlanta PD, you have Sheriff's Office from many different municipalities. I mean, you can see the SWAT. If you push more towards that intersection, Hunter, you can see that Bearcat right there where SWAT was coming in. And earlier, we also talked about how the FBI, I saw them walk up, so I do know that they're on scene. I mean, this is a all hands on deck. When I have covered these types of incidents before, you see people from all over the area come in, all hands on deck to help one another, and that's what we're seeing right now. Earlier, I was talking to people where I was down the road a little bit more before we had the opportunity to move closer to the scene, and they were just devastated by what's going on. I mean, you could see the worry in their face and the pain that they felt, not knowing, if someone they knew may have been hurt in that shooting. And, like your heart really goes out to them. And again, I want to kind of set the stage for you where I am. I'm on Clifton, right by the CDC Parkway. You guys, again, kept mentioning that CVS. Well, that's directly up the road, only a couple blocks, really. So we're really in the thick of it. I mean, the law enforcement personnel, this is just a tiny bit of it all. I would say this scene extends more than 2 or 3 miles, maybe each way. As you can imagine, this is all closed down. Again, I want to reemphasize this. Police are asking, if you don't have to be in the area, don't come in the area. Give them space to work. Give them space to investigate. As they said, this is still an active scene in that most recent tweet from Emory. So if you guys need to come in the area, just avoid it at all costs. Move those plans around. If you are a bystander, as we just heard from Cheryl just 2 seconds ago, I should say, you need to shelter in place. Stay away from windows. Make sure that you're not popping outside because, again, this is an active investigation and should be treated as such.
Chase, thanks so much. Of course, a lot of law enforcement. It's interesting, like you mentioned, like Brookhaven Police over your shoulder. Jurisdictions from all over Metro Atlanta responded to this. And just 11 seconds ago, we got this tweet. A police emergency continues on the Emory Atlanta campus at Emory Point. Avoid the area, shelter in place. So again, it does appear that the Emory Point, which is where the CVS is, we're looking right at it there, that is where it's at.
You know what? It just came in that the shelter in place a second ago was lifted. And I can also report that the mayor has now arrived on scene. We're getting ready for a press conference where we expect to learn a lot more information. This is a significant development because the fact that the shelter in place is lifted leads us to believe that the threat is at least contained, if not neutralized, because they're not going to have all of these people out and back out on the roads or leaving these buildings without that being the case. So the shelter in place for this area around Clifton Road by the CDC headquarters, the university campus there for Emory is now lifted.
So just as Cheryl and I were just talking while Chase was talking, kind of to set the tone here, the first alert went out at 5:01 p.m. of this active shooter on Emory Atlanta campus. And then again, we just confirmed, as Cheryl mentioned, it was a 9-minute difference where they put out that the threat continues, and then 1 minute ago, while the emergency continues on the Emory Atlanta campus at Emory Point, the shelter in place has lifted. And you can see these many of SWAT teams are out there, APD as well. We do want to go now to the hospital. We have a crew there. So what are you seeing? We know this is where that, what I'm being told is the DeKalb County Sheriff's deputy was taken just after 5 o'clock.
Well, Cody, you're right, and you and Cheryl both just touched on the biggest development. We're just seeing that tweet from Emory saying the shelter in place has been lifted. We do want to mention our own Ariana Manise just a few minutes earlier had said and had confirmed that the hospital here, Emory University Hospital, was on lockdown. Unclear at this point if the Emory University tweet saying the shelter in place has been lifted also means that the lockdown inside the hospital has been lifted. What we can say, and what you can see now probably through the lens here, is that there is still a massive law enforcement presence here. We're seeing lots of DeKalb police vehicles here. The speed, the pace here is a little slower than likely what we would have seen 30, 45 minutes ago as the scene was still unfolding. Because Cody, I mean, as you said, we have confirmed that injured law enforcement officer was taken to Emory University Hospital here. Of course, still seeing plenty of activity, helicopters circling overhead, law enforcement taking this very seriously. But as you pointed out, it seems some good news, the sense of things slowing down a bit here, the sense that the shelter in place has been lifted, gives us hope that this situation is contained. But as you can see here, here's a Clayton County Sheriff's deputy vehicle moving in real quickly here. And Cody, you pointed out, in situations like this, that's what happened. Just because this happened in DeKalb County, just because this happened in the Emory University area, it is not a jurisdiction issue. When a situation like this happens, every available law enforcement officer from any agency is going to flood the scene here, and that's what we're seeing at this moment just outside of Emory University Hospital. Again, we're still working to confirm if the shelter in place, or rather if the lockdown inside of the hospital has been lifted. Cody, as you pointed out, that's typically standard protocol when something like this happens. An ER, a trauma department, will lock down as a precaution. But as we've reported now, we do know that this shelter in place has been lifted per a tweet just a few moments ago from Emory University.
You know, Zach, we were talking about it being significant that the shelter in place is lifted. In that same tweet, they talk about the emergency situation still happening. And Cody, as we were watching Zach's report, you just sense all that's unfolding as you see so many, especially DeKalb County vehicles there at the hospital as people are gathering around, you know, a law enforcement partner. We've confirmed through two sources that a DeKalb County Sheriff's officer had been hit, and we don't know the extent of the injuries. And while Emory University Hospital is not a level 1 trauma center, that does not mean that the injuries are not severe, because it is the closest hospital. I mean, the shooting happened so close to that hospital that if need be, you would just get that person to the closest help available, and that would be Emory University Hospital.
And I just do want to reiterate that things are fluid, things change oftentimes with our sourcing as well, because again, sheriffs versus deputies, or sheriff's deputies versus police officers. What I'm being told, Cheryl, now, I just have gone back to my sources that things are starting to come out as the scene is getting a little bit less hectic. It does appear, which I wanted to ask again because it's a lot of DeKalb County officers at that ER.
Sure.
It does appear it's a DeKalb County police officer. So again, a lot of these jurisdictions, there's deputies versus officers, and sometimes that does get a little gray line because so many agencies respond. And what I'm being told from this source, again, that this appears to be a DeKalb County police officer, and it was the first officer on scene. So that does add to what we were talking about during the 5 o'clock hour. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a deputy, a sheriff's deputy, what that is. It affects every agency the same. Again, it just gives us a better idea of responses to this active shooter. But we talked about this, Cheryl. When these calls go out, every one of those law enforcement officers know if they are the first person arriving, their job is to put their life on the line and engage with that shooter. And that's what we saw today, and it appears a DeKalb County officer took a hit from stopping that shooter from hurting anyone in this community that they are serving to protect. They sign up for this. This is the call their family never wants to hear. They don't want to hear this because, again, you never know how these things are going to go. And we have seen the worst possible case here, as far as law enforcement goes, that one of their brothers in blue has taken a hit here, has been shot in the line of duty. What it appears, though, with the best case scenario for the civilians, no civilian injuries from sourcing, that the law enforcement response was how they train. That officer engaged immediately and stopped the bigger threat. But again, the big question now is what prompted this? What led up to this? And you can see this Clifton Road area still locked down in front of that Emory Point CVS. This is the view from ahead of that, from over that scene, right outside the CDC entrance of this view. And you see the crime scene tape up. And what I'll tell you, likely that response, it looks like the back of that is a shoot. Yeah, you see the back of that car is shot out.
Yeah, there's no glass in the back windshield
and see
of
the
that
liquids?
vehicle.
It's likely that engine was hit. It's likely that car right there was that officer who took a hit, or at least that officer was involved in that shootout, because you can see all of the liquids from that vehicle indicating the engine block was shot up. You can see the back window shot up, and who knows if it wasn't that officer from the back firing while trying to take cover. But that's the first shot I've seen anything like that of that vehicle being shot.
No doubt. We'll try to turn that around so we can get a closer view of that. But the fact that the crime scene tape there, that will be a central point of the investigation. To Cody's point, we want to be sensitive that just because we saw a certain jurisdiction on that car, there could be a number of officers from different departments that were just using the car to shield themselves, but that also speaks to the gunfire exchange enough to, spill transmission fluid or whatever's on the ground behind that vehicle.
And I'm comfortable to say this now. I've been checking with sources. I've held off because I wanted to make sure what we're hearing, but I'm now, at least through two sources, are hearing that one of the suspects is down, indicating that suspect has died, but they are actively searching for a second suspect. So again, we heard this at the end of the 5 o'clock hour. I did not feel comfortable going with, because again, there's a lot of activity here, but sources are telling me that the one suspect is down and they're looking for a possible second suspect, which is why this is still an emergency situation, but the lockdown, the shelter in place has been lifted because it appears that they have this contained. So it's believed if in fact there is a second shooter, that shooter is within this perimeter. But again, sources are telling us that at least one suspect is down in this shooting.
So even though the shelter in place is lifted, best to stay clear of this area, give law enforcement the space they need. This view just shows you the crush of the response, from ambulance to battalion chiefs, firefighters, SWAT vehicles, patrol cars from many different jurisdictions. We have seen armored SWAT vehicles are there as well. And just a moment to think about every law enforcement officer who's responded, who is very well aware that that there are injuries that could be critical. We can confirm now through APD that one shooter is dead. This just coming in a second ago from Atlanta police confirming that one shooter is dead. Mayor Dickens and Chief Shearbaum are on scene. They are there at that intersection. We expect will be part of a news conference we're waiting for momentarily. As soon as that starts, we'll bring it to you. We expect to get a lot more information at that point. But again, APD confirming that one shooter is dead.
Okay, and this is new. There is no ongoing threat to the Emory campus or the surrounding neighborhood. The incident involved a single shooter who is now dead. So again, while they were possibly looking for a second suspect, APD putting out just 1 minute ago, the threat to the Emory campus is over. The shooter is dead. APD telling us they believe just one lone shooter here. But they are asking people to avoid the area as this remains an active scene. But again, so the best case scenario, they have taken down the threat here. That is what they do. They don't shoot to injure when these type of situations happen, because again, this person put this entire neighborhood on lockdown, and when they engage to neutralize the threat, and this often happens in active shooter situations where they're not going to shoot you in the leg, they're going to make sure you stop shooting at them, and we saw that. We saw the exchange of gunfire with the suspect. So the big thing now is checking on that officer.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the concern now. The suspect, of course, they want him alive because they want to find out exactly why. So that's part of the investigation happening now, Cheryl. With the suspect down, 99% now they have an ID. And what they're doing now with the FBI's help, they're at that suspect's home, or they are en route to that suspect's home if he's here. If not, another agency's heading there. And that starts this whole investigative process. Motive, where'd he come from? How to get the gun?
Who is this person? What's his background? Has he had run-ins with law enforcement before? Had he been on their radar?
Right.
Is he someone that he or she someone that they were looking at?
And that's the key question here. Was this a one-off? Was this something that happened at the CVS? Did he have other intentions, or she? We don't know the details of that. But if you are just joining us here at 6:46 p.m. on this Friday night, Atlanta police confirming there is no longer a threat at Emory Point. If you know anyone that lives in the area at the CDC, please let them know, text them. While the all clear has been given, at least for the threat, it's active and the suspect is down.
I'm going to share read this together with you. This is from the City of Atlanta, a safety update just a moment ago. There is no ongoing threat to the Emory campus or the surrounding neighborhood. The incident involved a single shooter who is now deceased. One law enforcement officer was injured in the course of the response. Please avoid the area as the scene remains active and law enforcement continue its investigation. We thank you for your cooperation and will provide updates as more information becomes available. So we have seen these waves of emphasis. First, making sure all the thousands of people in that area were locked down and secure, and that the shooter was contained and neutralized. We know those things have been resolved. All of the energy now goes towards how is this officer doing that we have confirmed is a DeKalb County police officer, the first officer on the scene. So the officer who first came face to face with this active shooter at the CVS there off of Clifton Road. That is where the emphasis is. Our thoughts are going for not just that department, but all departments, to that person's loved ones, to their families, to the people who care about them. And then also the investigative arm is now just really cranking up to answer all of the questions about how this happened and why this person did what they did.
And just real quick, the reason why this remains active is to put some perspective. There are 24 buildings in this area on 10 acres of property, and what they have to do is clear all of this. While, yes, APD says they believe there's one shooter, they still have to do due diligence to make sure that there is no other threat. There was no threat left, because we mentioned this, Cheryl. You don't know the motive here. So while, yes, the shooter might be dead, there could be other threats left behind.
So many people heard this happen, saw this happen. Chase Howell is with an Emory University employee right now who saw what happened. Chase, let me hand it to you so we can get that perspective.
Cheryl, Cody, this is Chris Weber. He is an employee at Emory University. Chris, you see what's going on right now at your place of employment. What's going through your head?
I was a little confused what's going on. I've seen a lot of protesters up on that corner over the years, but I never really thought that anything like this would happen.
Did you happen to hear those shots from that active shooter situation just about a block or two up the road?
I believe so. I wasn't really sure what that noise was. I'm pretty much buried deep in this building here, but I did hear something.
You look at all these police officers, FBI agents, the sheriff's office. What's going through your head as not only an employee of Emory University, but as a human?
Well, I feel actually pretty well protected. Our emergency management people, the first thing they did was send out a text that said, hey, be in place. And that was my first note that something really bad was happening. Then I heard helicopters. Just, yeah. But I feel well protected. I feel like response, maybe a little too much, but it's proportional.
I see you're in your truck right now. It looked like you were about to leave. Did they give you the all clear to leave? And how do you plan on getting out of here?
Yes, they did. And I am not sure. I'm going to wait. I'm just going to pull back and wait. I guess it looks like I might be able to go that way now, but I'll know. Something will happen pretty quick.
Mr. Weber, I mean, an active shooter situation so close to where you work, not even 2 or 3 blocks up the road. I mean, what's that emotion? I mean, you get that text to shelter in place. What goes through your mind?
It was a little, I was stunned for a minute, but when I realized that I was safe and that somebody was going to be taking care of it, then I was okay with it. I mean, you can't be okay with that happening, but it was certainly, I didn't feel like I was in any danger.
Mr. Weber, thank you so much. Now, I also spoke with another Emory University employee off camera, and I wish you guys could see him the way I did. It just looked like sadness. He seemed confused, overwhelmed, disappointed, all those emotions wrapped into one. But what really stuck out to me was the devastation he felt. He told me he heard gunshot after gunshot after gunshot and just didn't know where it was coming from. And he just looked up the road and just saw so much chaos. And it's heartbreaking in these moments when you talk to people like Mr. Weber, like that Emory University employee I spoke to. Your heart just breaks. You can't imagine what they're going through in that moment. And I feel like their face tells it all. It's just, it's truly, truly, truly heartbreaking what we saw. And as you mentioned, Cody and Cheryl, that has been lifted. I did see some through traffic or civilian vehicles up the road here actually get the chance to leave the area. As you can see, Mr. Weber is right here. There's another car behind him waiting to leave the area and go home and just really be with their loved ones right now, because at this point, I think that's what anyone wants to do. They want to make sure that their family is okay, and they want to be comforted by those who love them most. So right now, we do know that shelter in place has been lifted. We do know that people are trying to leave this area, as you can see, and I can again confirm to you that I have been seeing through traffic go around the perimeter over here. But again, you know, if you can avoid the area, please do. Don't come over here. This is an active investigation. There's still a lot of law enforcement agencies over here. I did see that Bearcat that I showed you earlier. I was able to see a bunch of SWAT members jump on it and take off. That was probably within the last 5-10 minutes. So again, right now we can see people trying to leave here right now. But again, if you don't have to come into the area, if you know people that may live nearby, shoot them a text really quick and just say to avoid this area over here.
Chase, no doubt a lot of grateful reunions about to happen. We're glad that all the civilians were safe, but our thoughts for law enforcement right now, as we know that community is dealing with a significant loss.
That's right. I've been working my sources on this, and I can tell you I got the first indication of this heartbreaking news just after the 6 o'clock hour. We have held off reporting this to give some time here because, again, this is impacting a lot of people. Originally, we were told this was a sheriff's deputy, but what's my understanding now, it was a DeKalb County police officer. Sources are telling me this DeKalb County police officer was first on scene, engaged with this shooter. And tonight, this source is telling us that this officer paid the ultimate sacrifice today while protecting this community. This officer signed up to do this, to serve this community. And at this hour here, going on the 7 o'clock hour on a Friday night, the DeKalb County Police Agency has lost one of their best here. And again, that's coming from sourcing. We do know a news conference will be coming up, and it's likely the chief will talk about this. But just a heartbreaking situation. It's the worst thing that can happen to anybody who puts on that uniform. You go into work, you expect to come home. It's not guaranteed, but today we saw what can happen because, again, that's why they call no call, no matter what it is never routine in this industry when it comes to serving and protecting our communities.
There are no words to express our condolences for that loss. And I think what you're saying about the ultimate price, but also the ultimate gift to all the people in that area who are okay tonight because he or she confronted that shooter. And we're thinking about his or her immediate family and all of the law enforcement community that our sources are telling us lost one of their own in this active shooter off the Emory campus.
And it does, as we were getting the word behind the scenes of what was transpiring with this officer, it matched what we were seeing in real time.
Right.
What we saw was that they rushed this officer to Emory, and we had crews. You saw Zach Merchant at Grady because that's what typically happens. Anytime, even if you were shot as a civilian, you go to Grady, they fly you there. Anytime we usually have an OIS, which is an officer-involved shooting, and an officer's been shot or even hit by a car, anything, they try to get them to Grady as fast as they can because, again, there's no better team, I would say, in the state or in the Southeast if you have a trauma like that to get help. And they save lives there. They save lives every day in the city. So when we did not see that officer get to Grady, we knew it was likely one of two things. It was either the injuries were not as severe, they didn't have to go to Grady, and it's the other that we did not want to say on the air is that all they could do is get him there or her there and try to save their life. And that's the only option they really had with probably the severity of the injuries.
Because Emory University Hospital is right there. So the immediacy was now we know because of the severity of the injury, getting to whatever help was closest. If you're just joining us, our sources are telling us that a DeKalb County police officer has died in the line of duty, confronting an active shooter at the Emory Point CVS. The first warning for the public to run, hide, fight, and avoid the area came out just about 5 p.m. And just before 7 p.m., the news that the officer has passed away from our sources. Again, we're waiting on a press conference. Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum. This is the setup for that news conference. We expect DeKalb County would be represented there as well to hear more about hopefully this officer and what we can learn about this officer and how they put themselves in harm's way to protect the greater community in an area with tens of thousands of people.
And I do want to show just the respect that we are attributing here because many of you might ask, well, does this family know? And I can tell you the first text that I got when we started reporting this was at 5:06. That's the first text, and I can tell you, I will read the text to you to show you what we knew, what we held off on. To be transparent, though, I wanted to let you know at 5:06, the text that I got, active shooter near the CDC, one officer shot. That alert from Emory went out at 5:01. So that means within just the 10-minute window, likely around just before 5, and that shows you that officer was one of the first on scene, if not the first, engaged. And we knew that officer had been hit. But out of respect, we held off. And then in the 6 o'clock hour, we heard the worst that we could possibly hear. We wanted to make sure we got our sourcing correct. That again, that a law enforcement officer there in DeKalb County paid this ultimate sacrifice, and it's a heartbreaking situation there. This will impact all of those officers because likely what happened in this exchange of gunfire, there was an officer right behind this one. And that officer probably had to pull that officer out. They probably threw him in a police car and ran him to Emory. They didn't wait for an ambulance. And that's what people don't understand sometimes. If you've not worked with them in the field, if you haven't been around them, they get a, I know there's some bad apples out there. One doesn't make them all bad. And I'll tell you, those officers went to the gunfire. They did what they had to do, and you see what happened. And I'll tell you, what will happen with them is this will hit all of them. The ones that witnessed it, they might have never even seen an officer involved. They might have never seen this. And when it's your fellow brother in blue or sister in blue, it changes everything. And, they have to stay there and keep investigating. That's the part people don't understand. They couldn't stop and take it all in. They have to keep going.
I was just thinking that, as you said that, this image is really important. If you look closely, the back of that car, the windshield is shot out, and there was a lot of liquid under it, which speaks to damage from gunfire. That vehicle is right by the front door of that CVS where we believe that gun exchange happened, so that crime scene tape around the vehicle points to that would have been the vehicle officers were shielding behind when that shooting was happening. Again, this is that, we'll try and isolate that video for you because that's really where all of that would have happened. And I'm seeing video on coming into the 11 Alive newsroom from people who live in the area who are starting to share video of the gunshots. We're going to just pause and play some of that for you so you can hear what people in that area were hearing. Wow, that gives you chills because that was rapid and extended, and that's what officers were facing in those first moments.
And again, it goes to show you that's what they were going into, and I always bring this up, that's what they trained for. In 2025, they rushed to that scene. Their number one priority is to engage immediately and not wait. You've seen the FBI there. What is going to be one big question at this news conference? They likely won't answer it for us, but a motive. Where did this guy come from, or this woman? We do not know the suspect's identity, but again, it was outside Emory Point. CVS telling NBC News National that everybody in their store was safe. In fact, NBC News reporting that they were told by the corporate of Target that this happened near their store. So we're wondering if this happened just out in the street and what was the intended target here. That's something we hope to learn in this news conference, which we will bring live. And just a programming note, probably the most least important thing, but we know we get people that call in. Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy are on the WATL at 7. So that's where those are at. If you're joining us to watch your nightly Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, that's over on the WATL, and it'll start at 7, which is already under programming. But the reason we are on the air and we're staying on the air is because one of the men or women who signed up to protect us every day, no matter how much heat they take, lost their life protecting a community and protecting those folks there outside the CDC and all of those people who live along Clifton Road. That's why we're staying on the air, to learn more about this officer and about this heroic act this officer carried out today, because again, the sources are telling us this was one, if not the first responding officer who engaged with the suspect and likely could be the person that took him down.
And thinking of everyone impacted, the tens of thousands of people in that area who heard the gunfire we just heard together, who saw the police response, who were hiding behind file cabinets or in closets, staying away from windows because we've seen bullet holes through windows in that area, and the impact to everyone who had somebody they care about who was in the center of all all of this. That is a trauma that the city is sharing tonight, along with the loss of the officer. We want to send it to 11 Alive reporter Zach Merchant, who is at Emory Hospital. Emory Hospital for a time had been on lockdown. That's where the DeKalb County police officer was taken to, who we now learn through our sources has passed away. Zach, I understand you're talking with somebody who works there at the hospital.
Cheryl, we're talking to Michael here. He's an employee. He works here at the hospital. Michael, first off, are you okay? Is everybody you know okay?
Yes, sir. Everybody that I work with and all of us in the respiratory department is okay.
Can you describe what you saw and what was happening as the day unfolded this afternoon and evening?
It was a regular day for me. I got a text saying that it was an active shooter, and at the time I was just sitting down in the break room, so I just kind of stayed in the locker room and just stayed there for the time being.
When you get a text like that, what's the first thing that you do? What's the first thing that goes through your mind? I mean, that's got to be your nightmare.
I didn't think it was real. I didn't know what to make of it. Like maybe it's a situation that's like maybe someone's having an argument or something like that. I didn't think it was be active, multiple people,
And now we're getting this news that this officer has succumbed to their injuries. I know we were talking just before we came on air here. You were saying, you're praying, or you're sending your thoughts out for them and their family, right?
Yes, definitely. Condolences to the family, to the law enforcement that protect us. Thank you. Please be safe. God be with you. It's just really tragic.
Does the team at a hospital like this train and prepare to respond to incidents like this?
Yes. Yes, we do. We definitely do.
Did that training kick in today?
Yes, for sure.
Just describe to me, we want to be respectful of your time. We'll let you go in just a moment here, but I want to ask you one last question. For the hospital community here, you all see tragedies. It's your job is to help people. But when something like this happens, how does it impact everybody who works here?
I think it from a psychological standpoint, I feel like I feel more anxious a little bit. It's very tough. It's very tough, but we are a big part of the environment, the society, and we have a big job to do, and we're going to continue doing that.
When you hear the news that this officer, as we're reporting, was the first one on scene rushing towards this threat, how does that hit your heart?
It's really unfortunate. Condolences. It's very unfortunate. But he's a very brave man. Just condolences to the family.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you for your time. Glad you are okay.
Thank you.
Guys, we're going to send it back to you now.
All right, Zach, we really appreciate him sharing the perspective. I know for everyone who's been in that area, it's really kind of all sinking in. The first text alert came out just after 5 o'clock with all caps saying, run, hide, fight, avoid area, active shooter. So just soaking that moment in, then the 2 hours that happened since, then news of the loss of a DeKalb County police officer, the first officer on the scene, confronting that active shooter in an area where people were at the CVS. We know there were people inside the CVS when this happened, and we have just gotten confirmation from CVS that no one in the store was hurt. We know from the CDC headquarters, diagonally across that Clifton Road intersection, that nobody there was hurt, and that building was not breached, so that shooter was stopped in that first location. But to give a better understanding of what those first responders dealt with in those moments and what everyone who lives in that area heard happen around them, we want to take a moment in just a second to listen to some of the video of those initial gunshots. I just want to give a little warning for anyone who might feel the trauma of that. You're going to hear gunshots in just a moment as we pause together now to listen to what happened in those first moments when law enforcement confronted this active shooter. So rapid shots, extended gunfire between that shooter, who we can report has been killed. That single shooter from Atlanta police, we can confirm, a single shooter who is now deceased. So now you heard all the gunshots. This is some of what happened because of those gunshots. These are images that were sent to us from someone who lives right above the CDC as they're looking out their window towards the CDC building. Pardon me. They live above the CVS where the shooting happened, looking towards the CDC building, and you're seeing bullet holes in the glass of that building. Again, we can confirm from the CDC that that building was not breached in any way.
And that matches what we're hearing from people there in that area. We are working to contact some of the businesses there by phone because obviously we cannot get there in the Clifton Road area in front of the CDC where these pictures were taken. But I can tell you there is a salon there. It's called Skin Culture Spa. They have told CNN, they've reached them through the phone, that they saw the police officer shooting at a suspect around the corner from the CVS. And this person telling CNN, the spa employee, quote, "And then I heard the Emory CDC siren go off, and then it was completely silent after that." You heard like 4 to 8 gunshots continuously and then silence again. So again, this is an employee at the spa there under the apartment where we just saw that shoot those bullets in the window. So there were a lot of people in this area that witnessed this who are impacted by this. And this is the area you're looking at. So Clifton Road there is at that intersection. And that is the totality of this. How many people were involved? We believe that was one of the officers' vehicles because the back window is shattered out. The engine block looks to be shot up because of the liquids out there. And I'll tell you something that stuck out to me. I mentioned this a little bit ago, but there was a white vehicle parked outside that CVS. It's been there since we started coverage, and it's in the crime scene with the hood or the back of the trunk open.